And welcome in everybody to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast, one of the many podcasts out there that is not trying to buy different territories across the country. We appreciate you so much for joining us on this Wednesday evening, or for one of your favorite places to catch podcasts later on in the week. It is DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelcey. As we finished college championship. We're going into deep part of basketball. We got NFL playoffs. We got a lot to discuss today and a lot of things to stay on track with, including some beef from the least likely scenarios.
Yeah, we're at that point now. Okay, I've made it through the national championship game. Now it's just all right. I got NFC, AFC championship games to go. All Star break. Let's let's get some more championships out of the way because these are always fun. I mean, who would have thought Indiana, Miami, and it's Indiana? Like, come on, what are we doing here? This is 2025 or is it 2001 or what? Where are we at now?
Yeah, it was definitely surprising. We got a lot going on, and it's right in the midst of a winter storm that's going to absolutely obliterate a lot of us as well, to the point where there's exploding trees in the North Midwest because of the ice. Ice is really doing a number up there in Minnesota and other places around there. But that's going to take us now into the first part of our show. That is, of course, the tip-off brought to our good friends over at SeatGeek. Use code BelletSports for $20 off your first set of tickets, whether it's for sporting events, concerts, festivals, anything that requires tickets. Get yourself $20 off your first purchase with Belly Up Sports. And we're going to talk about that aforementioned Indiana University winning its first football national championship. Not basketball. This is football. This is 2026. They are national championships of the college football world after an undefeated regular season, taking down Miami as we just take a quick gander. 21-27, the Hoosiers on top. Weirdly enough, statistically speaking, Miami had the better game on paper. You had the leading passer, the leading rusher, the leading receiver. But Indiana just did what they've done all season. They just won the game. Google it, to quote the good Signetti. They found a way to do it, and I never thought in my lifetime I'd see a Hoosiers national championship. Even in college, even playing the college football games, I had never thought I would see it. But here we are in less than 2 seasons. We got, if I'm not mistaken, 29-1 in 2 seasons at Signetti now, something like that. So just absolutely unbelievable run by the Hoosiers to take the college football world by storm.
Yeah, it's incredible to see. I mean, I definitely know it's the strongest team to ever come out of the state of Indiana in the college level, for sure. Some might argue the NFL level, but honestly, maybe just this year.
Until the Bears move to Gary, then yeah.
But no, this is incredible. I mean, there's a lot of cool things about Indiana winning. You mentioned the stats wise, and I do want to bring this up because I found this yesterday as I was scrolling through the massive onslaught of statistics that comes after a crazy national championship run. Before I get to it, though, by the way, 16-0, first time that's happened since 1894. So that's crazy. Second, though, this is a post on the CFB Reddit, which, of course, if you follow college football, you probably follow. Welcome to the degeneracy. But anyways, here it goes. Per metrics consensus, the 2025 Indiana Hoosiers are power rated as the 9th best college football team since 1946, ahead of teams like 2019 LSU, 2001 Miami, 2008 Florida, 2004 USC, and 1991 Washington. They are also, and this is the part I joked about the Indiana, they're also the strongest college football team to ever come out of the state of Indiana, which, again, includes all the Notre Dames. Just throwing that out there. So
I gotta say, statistically, that is hilarious because, like we mentioned, looking at those things here, Indiana's not really elite in any stat. When you look at it, like they didn't have an explosive offense, they weren't elite throwing, they weren't elite rushing, they were a good defense, but they weren't like an all-time defense compared to like those 2001 Hurricanes, for example. But that statistic and the win-loss column is where they're their absolute most elite. And while it may say that, I will disagree. I don't know if they beat all of those teams that you just mentioned, if that we put them head-to-head in my own noggin, despite what the numbers say. But that is incredible company to be a part of nonetheless, especially as we mentioned, you don't exactly have a history of even being competent, let alone good in college football. Like it's not even a history, honestly. If they could rewrite the record book right now, Indiana football would have started in 2024. They're going to ignore everything before
it. Yeah, they'd probably be very happy about that, honestly. They have more national championships than some teams that, if that would have been the case, that have been around for 200 years. But I digress. Here's a couple of stats to back it up, by the way. The all-time scoring differential per game for undefeated champions. Number 1, Florida State in 2013, 39.5 point difference. 2001 Miami and Texas, both at second, 33.8, and the 2005 Texas team right there, And then 2018 Clemson, 31.2 point difference. And then number 5 is 2025 Indiana at 29.9 points per game or point differential for the season. Also finished the season 3rd in scoring offense and 2nd in scoring defense. The last national championship to do that was the 2013 Florida State team, which led the nation as points per games allowed and finished 2nd in points per game. So absolutely kind of an incredible run across the board. This year finished passing efficiency first overall in third down conversions, first overall in turnover margin, first overall in fumbles lost, second overall in total sacks, and that's total sacks, second overall in rushing defense, second overall in scoring defense, second overall in first downs allowed per game, and I could go on and on. This list is literally like 30 stats deep, and it is kind of crazy to think about it when you consider who I just named off team-wise. Joe Burrow and the 2019 LSU Tigers. That feels like that's the best undefeated team I've ever watched in my life.
Especially offensively, at least.
Yeah. 2001 Miami. Okay, honestly, I have complaints about the 2001 Miami team, but I won't tell Miami Hurricanes fans that. But that's a
They're
me thing.
Enough right now.
Yeah. 2008 Florida. Were they perfect? No.
That team was overrated.
But 2004 USC.
That's a wagon.
That was the USC. That was the USC that put USC on the map for our era of college football. And like when I see that one, I'm like, that's crazy. 1991 Washington. I also like, okay, I think that's different eras of football, so I could definitely see them being ranked higher. But I would say that's also the era before us. That's their college football. Them and that Washington team and that Nebraska team in those years would be the teams that they would consider as the all-time greats. So, yeah, looking at this list of teams that they're ahead of, it's just kind of crazy that, 9th best ever champion. Also, kind of surprised that they didn't put Auburn up here as a team that they were in front of. I don't. When you're talking about it, like I would honestly say Auburn was one of the worst all-time undefeated national championship. Crazy, best story, best accomplishment, but I think like if we're going on metrics, it wasn't the best team overall, right? Like, so the fact that they're behind Auburn, but they're ahead of 2019 LSU is a crazy stat here. But I mean, to be your top 10 overall team in the power rankings of all time college football champions since 46, like that's got to give them some credit. Like, good job, Signetti, I guess, right?
It is interesting because it does feel like a weird, like greater than the sum of their parts stat rating. I'm not doubting it either. I'm just curious. Yeah. I'm looking at curious because you mentioned that LSU team. We know Joe Burrow 60 touchdowns, 6,000 passing yards. Jamar and Justin. Jamar breaking the SEC records before Devontae Smith broke them the next year because that's how football was in the early 2020s. It was a glorious time for offense. So like you see that statistically. Then that USC team, Lendo White and Reggie Bush combined for 32 touchdowns that year.
Yeah,
like that's just their sophomore running backs. I'm not including Matt Leinart, who won the Heisman Trophy stats in that. Mendoza accounted for, I think, 40 this year. So those two running backs almost match that. And USC, we know how good those defenses were. So it is interesting to see them rank that high, which not doubting as a team, they've been outstanding. I think that's maybe why offensively their statistics aren't as gaudy because they get out to a quick lead. A lot of the RPOs control the game. Defense makes a couple plays. Suddenly it's 17-3 and midway through the second quarter, and the other team's getting blitzed by that defense and the rest of the game. It's kind of Indiana's basically in cruise control. So I can see it, but they're interesting, that's for sure. And shout out to JMIU. They've done it with so many transfers as well. So many. There's not a lot of blue. They were 100-1 underdogs coming in with the chance to win the 101 chance to win the national championship coming to the year. So it's not like anyone saw this coming. They thought last year was a fluke, and this year they're getting clapped. Even neither one of us put them in the playoff when we did our preseason preview because we were like, well, they'll be fine, but we'll see. Sure enough, right? Like that's where they come from. But I'm going to be curious to see what happens in the following years. If this was a one-off with all the transfers, or if they're just going to keep. If Signetti is about to build a complete army wagon there, that's what I'm going to be curious to see moving forward.
Yeah, I mean they got a lot to build off of. And by the way, there was one more thing I wanted to throw out here, stat-wise, that I thought was really cool. Prior to the national championship game, and I'm just not looking at the national championship game right now because it wasn't considered in this comment, but Indiana had not trailed at any point during its 3 games of the college football playoff experience, becoming the first team to do so since 2020's Bama team. And then don't forget, Indiana still has to play. Would after the national championship would have played 2 more games than that Alabama team. So
This
pretty
is crazy.
impressive. Like just like you don't think about it, right? You said the sum of all parts, and I think that's a very good point because Indiana as a whole is a fantastic unit. And then when you start picking it apart, you're like, oh, there's gaps here, but they cover their gaps so well. As just look at the way the game ended, right? If that ball is thrown 5% better, it's a Miami national championship.
I say
That's
too that
that's
that's
not much. Like 5% is a very small difference when you're talking about the throw ability. And
that is a high IQ play by the defender too. In your cover two zone, there is no flat, so you actually sink and get underneath something like that to make it harder. Where you'll see corners in a cover two just kind of sit because that's their responsibility, knowing the time and situation where they need a touchdown. There's no one in the flat, so you sink like that and get underneath that throw because it was the right read by the coverage, in
yep.
theory, throwing that whole shot. Just incredible play by the defender.
I mean, and also if you look back at the play, the running back looks like he's going to be out in the flats. Like that's what the play looks like. It looks like the play was designed to be that, but it looked like they had to check it so the running back stayed in because the Indiana was sending a blitz or at least rushing one more than they were expecting. And so if you look at that, like you said, takes away the flat. It allows him to drop, kind of sit on that and just cut underneath it. It was a beautiful thing. And the storyline behind Sharp being the one to get the interception after what happened to his uncle, I think it was his uncle uncle in what 2001 for Miami against Ohio State. Like it's incredible to that storyline as well.
Absolutely. It definitely came full circle. It was one heck of a game. Let us know down below what you all think of it. JMIU. Do you think they'll be able to continue this run? Or do you think this was their one national championship run where you rank them all time? But a big key of this is, of course, Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner, the signal caller, the quarterback. He will not be back next year as he is already a Cal graduate who's just finished up his final year of eligibility. He will be heading presumably to the NFL and potentially the Las Vegas Raiders. By the looks of it, number one overall selection. They had the owner, the GM, the Tom Brady all in the house watching. I think he's going to Vegas. I don't know what the odds are right now, but I'm pretty sure they're in the minus form. And it seems like a fit. It feels like I know they don't have a coach yet, so that obviously changes things. Maybe once they get a coach, that changes. But you have a huge need at quarterback. You do have a veteran under contract for one more year. If you're Vegas, you haven't hit the quarterback since Derek Carr, and even that was kind of shaky after a couple of years. I feel like assuming you don't absolutely hate the prospect, because I know coming out of that offense, does it translate? You know, he's not elite traits, quote unquote, which I think is vastly overrated more often than not. But at the same time, he just seems like a very good football player that I think if you change the offense, he'll learn. All right, he's not running the same offense. Give him time, he'll learn it. He's in the best, nicest way possible. And I say this as a fellow one of them. He's a nerd. Like he's an absolute nerd. You could tell, which is great. You kind of want that from a quarterback. So I think he's going to be fine wherever he goes. I think, will he ever be elite? We don't know. They can't tell the future. If I had to guess, I think he's going to be above average to pretty good. A couple of Pro Bowls here or there, which that's great. The Raiders haven't had that in a long time. So I think he's well on the way. Unless he pulls aside and was like, yeah, I'm not going to Vegas. Then that shakes things up completely, which can you imagine that? He says, I refuse to go to Vegas and forces his way to the Jets. Who would have saw that coming?
No, that's crazy. It's funny. I definitely support the nerds if nobody knows what's behind me. I have a Green Lantern statue, a Hulk statue, some Power Ranger stuff right here. Like,
That's a different
yeah,
level of nerd.
we support the nerds on this podcast. Don't forget we did the May the 4th Be With You podcast where we had our lightsabers out last year. Surprise, I guess spoiler for this year. But
that was a literal thing. That was not a euphemism. So everyone get your mind out of
no, yeah,
that.
literal lightsabers from wherever I bought them from Disney for myself, but whatever. Yeah, no, I think Mendoza is one of those guys you look at, and if you compare him to, let's say, a lot of the quarterbacks that's come out, let's say, last 6 years since Joe Burrow, he's not top 3, but he is 4th in my eyes. I don't think there's been a better potential quarterback for a high floor and potentially higher ceiling if you allow him to learn and not get killed immediately. I mean, obviously Joe Burrow's one, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, split them as 2-3, however you want to. After that, I don't find anybody ahead of him.
Herbert, Drake May. I mean, they're
Since 2019?
Well, Herbert came out
I
same year
guess
as Joe Burrow, so
I guess fair. But yeah, it's still a split though. I mean,
I
like
get what you're
honestly,
saying. He's in the upper echelon of
like
guys. When
Drake,
you look
I think
reliable.
Drake may have a chance, may have that fourth spot. So maybe he's fifth. Maybe Mendoza's fifth. I think Herbert was just he was so beaten up by the media by the time he came out. He was not looked at as that can't miss prospect. Plus, Joe Burrow was the can't miss prospect that year.
Yeah, everyone hated Herbert, then they didn't hate him, and now they hate him again,
Yeah.
which means the resurgence is coming.
Yeah, and we'll talk about him later. But I do think like when you compare him to some of the quarterbacks, he's definitely not a bad quarterback. It's not as awful as a lot of people are making him out to be. And I do want to say, like, I've listened to a lot of different podcasts and a lot of different sports podcasts, and I don't think that surprises anybody, considering we're doing a podcast. So you normally listen to a podcast. But the Carr brothers, they have a podcast, David and Derek Carr, and they were talking about what needs to happen for Fernando Mendoza. And Derek said he would love him to be a Raider, but if you're not going to fix everything around him, don't take him. I agree with that in a lot of cases if you're the Raider. Now, what do you do? We'll talk about that in a minute. But
Well,
I think yeah, but I think for this specifically, I think that's fair for what you need to do for Mendoza. Mendoza can go to Vegas and succeed. He has a very like he said he'd die on the field for his boys. That's the type of mentality that leads you to the Raiders and leads you to potentially get hurt at the Raiders, a la Derek Carr when you're having an MVP season and break your leg because you're dying on the field for your boys. Let's not do that again, Raiders. I know you were Oakland at the time, but let's not do it again. The dysfunction carried over. So I think when you look at this for Mendoza, yes, I think he could be a great fit in Vegas, but I think there's a lot of pieces that need to be fixed. We talked about this off air, and we talked about the offense and what you can do. Obviously, a new head coach is coming, which means a new offense, which means a lot of new pieces. I think, and I said this with Lamar when Lamar got drafted by Baltimore. Whatever offense you end up bringing in, build it around your quarterback. Don't just bring an offense and say learn it or bust. Even Ben Johnson adapted to Caleb Williams, and so now. I did not adapt much, but he adapted more than he did for Jared Goff. That's for sure. So yeah, I look at this as like one of those, like whatever you do, you got to make Mendoza succeed. You have to give him every opportunity. And the guy's smart enough. He was a Yale-bound player before he decided to go UC Berkeley and then ended up at IU. 3 pretty smart schools if nobody knows school rankings. And yeah, I think he has the ability to learn whatever offense. It's just going to be a matter of don't ask him to do things that he hasn't learned how to do yet. Whatever you do, and just give him some protection. Bring an offensive line in. Spend money in free agency. You have a lot of cap space. Go use it. You got 2 young, talented skill players. You're going to have a third in the quarterback. Go get some offensive linemen and help all of them out.
I would say rumor is Tom Brady is going to be involved as a minority owner, is going to be involved as part of the scouting search, the coaching search, things like that. Not saying he'll have final say or even a major say, but it sounds like he'll have a say. This would be the case where you take everything, maybe you don't let him make all the personnel decisions, but this is one where you take a lot of what he says with more than you take that one, it's worth its weight in gold. Let's say he likes Mendoza, he's like, take him, I think he's the guy. All right, what can we do to make him succeed? Obviously, you have all that cap space. Veteran offensive lineman will definitely help. They need a true receiver. Like they have an awesome tight end running back. Get him some receiving help on the outside. We know how much he loves those back shoulder fades, front shoulder fades. This is a wild idea, but if he's available, it's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. I don't know if I would do it. Ask me again in a few weeks when we get closer to free agency. But George Pickens with those back shoulder fades and Brock Bowers too, you'll have to give George Pickens a bag, and you're putting George Pickens in Vegas. So there's. Once again, I might change my mind later. This is just off the top of my head before the season's even ended about a big number 1 true X-type receiver you could give Mendoza, because you're going to use Brock Bowers all over the field. You're going to let Ashton Genty treat him like Marshawn Lynch is what they should do, and hopefully they will moving forward. Build that offensive line, spend a lot of money for it. Look what the Patriots did. They gave $160 million in guaranteed money last offseason, $284 million worth of contracts, and look where they are now. Granted, easiest path of all time to this point, but that's another story. They got there because they had a quarterback they believed in and built a unit around him. And I think the Raiders, they're not going to do that necessarily, especially not Mendoza's rookie year, but do a similar thing and maybe let Geno start the season. You still have him under contract. Let him get assaulted for the first month and some change. Let Mendoza work his way in slowly. Maybe Geno Smith shakes some things up and it looks pretty good. And that means Mendoza could sit even longer. Maybe it's awful and then Mendoza comes in sooner than, but put him on that Drake May trajectory where Drake May sat for 5 weeks behind Jacoby Brissett before eventually it was like, okay, we can't do this anymore. See what you could do with that at least a little bit. So I think he's going 1, and I think there is a path there for them to hopefully do it right. Just got to do it right and get a coach you're not going to fire in a year. So no 80-year-olds, no interim coaches, no somebody with baggage 3 times over. Just get somebody that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And also let's not forget that Mendoza, and before we get into the complaining about Mendoza, as we will when we get to the draft season, about he's unathletic, he's sneaky athletic. The guy ends up with 7 rushing touchdowns on the season. If you want to compare that to where NFL quarterbacks are this year, he would rank just behind Jalen Hurts at 5th overall in the league on quarterback rushing touchdowns. Last year, he would have been 3rd ahead of Anthony Richardson.
Well,
so,
yeah,
there was actually a lot of guys with 6 touchdowns last year, but I'm not going to go down that list because there's like 10 of them. But you look at that as an kind of unexpected part of his game that can, and it's probably the most now highlighted part of his game that will live in eternity, is that one rushing touchdown. But people forget the guy can actually run. And honestly, it's part of the reason he didn't work out at UC or at Cal is because Miami took his head off in a game, and he had to leave with a concussion. So like, let's not get him to do too much, but in the right situation, he can effectively do it. But yeah, you look at this as he has a lot of opportunity, man, and you gotta give him the opportunity. He has a lot of I guess ability to learn, and you got to give the guy like that any tool to learn. This is where I need John Gruden's QB camp again. I need him to go hang out with John Gruden for a week and just get all of that information. I need more Spider 2 Y Banana in my life.
I gotta say, the one thing I really hope they do is the same thing they do with Jackson Dart. Hey, Mendoza, give me your snap count because I want to see him once again just do this, and then you see just the fire and John Gruden's like, I hate college football so much.
Yeah,
you can tell he hates that so much. And another reason I want to say, let him get used to a cadence and a snap count. But we'll get more into this during draft time. I won't make this a full Mendoza breakdown episode because we have to head to the association next.
A lot of time for that one.
We got plenty of time. We're not even done with the NFL season yet, so we're gonna head to the association where the NBA All-Star starters have been announced. So we're going to take a look now, starting with the Eastern Conference. To no one's surprise, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jalen Brunson, Cade Cunningham, Jaylen Brown, and Tyrese Maxey. So we got 4 guards and a Giannis. And I know position obviously doesn't really matter for these ones, but I don't really have any issues with this when you look at it. Like Giannis is Giannis. Tyrese Maxey's had a sensational season, averaging 30 points a game and just under 7 assists. Jaylen Brown, kind of the same thing, just with rebounds instead. And Cade Cunningham, almost a 26-point double-double. He's been sensational. The East is weird because of all those injuries from last year, like Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton. Obviously, Joel Embiid's not fully integrated yet. So I think this lineup makes sense for me from the East. I can't really think of anybody else that's a must-have for an Eastern starter.
No, I'm honestly fine with the East. I actually, before we get to the West, I'll hold my thoughts on the West too. But I think you look at this, okay, you got a 30-point score in Tyrese Maxey. He has to be in the All-Star game. Like, he's averaging 30 points. Let's not put him on the bench. Let's not give it a chance for the coaches to bring him in. No, just start the man. He deserves it. Jalen has carried the Knicks at this point in time to the point where they're talking about trading Cat because, well, it's Cat.
Yeah.
Giannis, yes. Jaylen Brown, I mean, as long as you're not talking about his hairline, you should be fine.
I'll be quiet on that one too.
You don't try to paint yours on. That's the difference. So
I could get away with it. And you know what? That's another conversation.
He didn't get away with it either.
Because Cade Cunningham, I would make a case, has been the best player in the East overall this year, all things taken into consideration.
And that's the thing is, like, statistics wise, yeah, he may not be the top guy statistically, but honestly, if you just watch him play, he is probably 1A, 1B. Like, take your pick where you want to put him there. But he's been fantastic.
6, like, that's incredible too. And for the Pistons, who have been they've been good. I mean, they've been solid. They were a team that we both really liked coming into the year. They have 31-10. Like, they're cooking. They're first in the East for a reason, and that's a big reason why is this CC. And we're not talking Caitlin Clark.
No, I like it, man. I mean, he was my preseason MVP pick, I believe.
I like it too.
I hope I did it.
Now we're gonna head to the West, where I don't think it's wrong, but it's definitely more interesting. We got Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, SGA, Nikola Jokic, Victor Wembanyama. The more I look at it, the more I don't really mind it. Like, I think 4 of these are clear. The one that took me off guard at first was Steph. I was like, wait, what's Steph doing there? But look, he's averaging 27 and 5. Like, it's not Chef Curry of his prime, but that's still better than so many other players. And I don't really know who else I'd put as a starter over him. Luka, obviously, 33, almost 9 and 8 or 7.5. Jokic would be MVP if he didn't get hurt. 30, a triple-double. SGA with his 32 points, and then Wemby, 25, 10, and whatever his blocks are. They're not showing it, and I can't think of off the top of my head. So, weirdly enough, for the West, this kind of makes sense for me, too. Like, obviously, 4 of these are dead obvious to me because they're 4 of the 6 best players in basketball, in my opinion. And Steph, I can't really think of who I'd put in his place, even though it did catch me off guard when I first saw it, because the Warriors kind of stink, and they're going to stink a lot more moving forward now that Jimmy Butler's knee exploded. And I don't see them getting a whole lot better as a team, but I'm not going to punish Steph for that.
Yeah, no, I don't blame Steph at all. I think it was Ant is probably the guy that has the biggest case for being in here. But I believe he lost the coin flip to LeBron and Vic and Ant, and so Victor Wembanyama won that, I guess. I don't know how that all worked out, but anyways, he ends up in the Vic ends up in the All-Star game as a starter, and Ant will definitely be on the bench. I don't think there's a single doubt in anybody's mind there. But yeah, Steph is always going to be there. Luka, obviously, 33.3 points a game. If nobody's watched him play this year, what are you doing? Shea, same thing. I don't care if you call him a flat foul merchant. The dude deserves it every time he watches on the court, as long as he's playing well. Jokic is, yes. He might be the guy that I look at as like people are just tired of seeing him. In reality, and honestly, his game doesn't really translate to an All-Star game well. But if we're honest about it, his style of play isn't an all-star fancy style. It's like a bunting contest in the MLB All-Star game. Even though I'm all for it, it doesn't exactly work for an All-Star game, right? So
he's
Nikola
the one
Jokic is
throwing the alley-oops as opposed to throwing him down.
He's a great passer, but honestly, nobody remembers the passer. They all remember the crazy dunk.
Well,
but yeah,
we'll see what he pulls off this year. Maybe he headbutts one. Like, it's not like a Steve Nash across the court. Then we'll change our tune.
But I think the one guy I look at this, obviously you maybe didn't need him as a front court guy, but he's there, is Victor. I just I don't know how the whole thing worked with him and Ant and LeBron. All I know is LeBron didn't deserve to get it. So as long as it wasn't LeBron, I was fine. And I know everybody's like, oh, this is the first year LeBron hasn't been an all-star since I think he was came in the league. Or at least not an all-star starter, I think, since his second year. So yeah, I don't care. He didn't deserve it. Tell me you've watched the Lakers game and said LeBron deserves to be an all-star starter this year. I'll be shocked. I'll call you a homer and ask you how much he paid you. But yeah. I have no real complaints about this season other than probably Ant, but I don't know who I replace him with.
I think Ant's the one too where I look at it. And Ant is in my opinion, the best player not on this list. And even if I'm looking at the East, I feel like Ant's the only one in here that can make a conversation with the other 10 across both conferences. So I look at it, I think they got it pretty much right with the starters. If you wanted to take one, whether it was Steph or Victor out for Ant, I get it. Or even if you could cross conferences in the East, maybe you put him in over Brunson, maybe, or even then, I don't know. Like, I just think Ant's the only one I can think of. I agree with you on that. I think he's the only one I think of that could, in theory, be on this one, and I wouldn't have a complaint unless he took Jokic's spot. Then, what are we doing?
And I think there's also Donovan Mitchell. I think has a case, but honestly, he was hampered more by the fact the Cavs have been whatever the Cavs have been this year.
Not Cavs, that's for sure. They look like the Virginia Cavaliers and not the good ones.
Yeah, exactly. But also this new format for the league. Does this even matter? Probably not really. But we definitely know 4 out of the 5 international stars are going to come from the West, and then Giannis is the other one. And so, good luck defeating that, guys. I don't know what you're going to do there.
Best of luck.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is going to be crazy to watch. I don't like the way the All-Star format is going to be this year because honestly, do we need All-Star starters? Given the fact we're changing the format again, do we need starters?
Contract and incentives and Hall of Fame, that sort of thing. I get it. So it's like being announced to the Pro Bowl, basically. It's like, all right, cool, whatever. It's more or less just for the record.
Give them the jersey and give them the jersey when they show up. They don't need to be dubbed starters. It's like, hey, how many minutes can you play? Because you just played last night on the back end of a back-to-back. let's half like at least 2 of these guys aren't going to play or aren't going to start or aren't going to spend more than 5 minutes on the court. So what's the point? I don't know. But make all-star games great again. That's my request.
Especially basketball, because I get why the Pro Bowl stinks, because that's a lot of money on the line to where you could blow out an ACL easily. I don't like it, and I wish they would play, but that's different. Basketball, like, you come on now, get out there, you just go try a little bit, like just a little bit. Doesn't have to be great again, just make them good again.
Also, by the way, 7 players are currently have all-star incentives in their contract. None of them were selected as starters. So KD, RJ Barrett, where did he go? DeMar DeRozan, Dante DiVincenzo, Aaron Gordon, Tyler Hero, and Domantas Sabonis all have NBA All-Star incentives. All didn't get selected as starters, but at least half of them will probably get selected as bench players. But
Sounds like they'll still get their incentive regardless. So it'll work out.
It's just worth. It's very interesting considering this was the first year that they decided to ruin this and add All-Star incentives into contracts. And now
it's had them before, but I could be wrong, or maybe it's part of the negotiations. I don't know, but either way, good on the NBA. They got it right. They got it right for the most part. It looks like. So let us know down below what you all think of the All-Star selections, and we'll see what happens when the bench players get announced and when the games actually get played, which is what's really important. But it's not going to take us out of the tip-off and into our middle segment of the show. That is the main event, and for the main event, we are heading back to the league, the National Football League, and this was supposed to be a while. The Bills fired Sean McDermott. I wonder what they're going to do next to head coach. Well, that was before this morning took place at the time of the recording, where Brandon Beam was not only promoted to president of football operations, but during the press conference, the owner Pagula, when asked about the Keon Coleman thing, here's the nice. By the way, Keon Coleman is still very much on the roster for everybody. So everyone knows. He is very much still on the roster for a couple more years. But here's the owner saying, "I'll address the Keon situation." Sorry, the coaching staff pushed to draft Keon. I'm not saying Brandon wouldn't have drafted him, but Coleman wasn't his next choice. That was Brandon being a team player and taking advice of his coaching staff who felt strongly about the player. And he's taken for some reason heat over it and not saying a word about it, but I'm here to tell you the true story. Sure, he clarified that he's not referring to McDermott, but another coach who he declined the name. Well, according to none other than Brandon Beam himself, when I went to bed that night, I was like, it's Keon unless someone blows us away. So you know what they say. There's always a tweet for that. There's always something to go with it. Like there's always a follow-up. There's always, what's the word I'm looking for? You know what? You can see it for yourself. There's always evidence of it. You see right here. All things considered, we're gonna get the guy talking about Keon Coleman. That's Brandon Bean too, for everyone who knows. Like this was And by the way, Brent, he is still on the team. You have 3 healthy receivers on the team, and he's one of them. You can't be throwing him under the bus right now unless he's getting traded yesterday. So I would start by saying, yeah, you know what? Maybe Sean McDermott was not the problem after all. Not that we ever really thought he's a problem, but we get a peek of what goes on behind the curtain a little bit. So it's a lot more like, you know what? When it comes to it's the coach's fault, now a lot more it's like, you know what? Maybe it's not entirely the coach's fault. Or wow, the GM's terrible. Well, maybe the GM has a little something going on. Like we knew this was a thing with the Browns. Everybody knew that. That was the worst kept secret ever. But even on good teams with the Bills, like my goodness, how ridiculous can you be? And for the record, too, the Bills, since they drafted Josh Allen, have drafted 2 Pro Bowlers, Dawson Knox and James Cook. And that's a long time. And I think James
Deion Dawkins, right?
It might have been Deion Dawkins and not Dawson Knox. I might have got those ones backwards. I might have got the D's confused, actually. So, but you might be right on that one. But my point being, they've only drafted a couple of Pro Bowlers. That out of all those drafts, that's 8 years worth. That's not a very strong vote of confidence for a GM, especially one that's going to get promoted, and then the owner's going to go to bat for you like that.
Yeah. It couldn't have come on a worse day for Bills fans either, because also today you got notified that your boy, Josh Allen, let's be honest, he's everybody's boy because you just walk in. I'm sure you enjoy having a beer with a guy or a soda if you don't drink. But he might be up for foot surgery in the offseason. So, yeah, that's bad. Also, by the way, Dawson Knox also made a Pro Bowl, but Deion Dawson's a 5-time Pro Bowler. So
I just checked. Deion was drafted before Josh Allen. That's why it wasn't part of the stat.
Since Josh. Okay, since
2018 when they took Josh Allen. So it was 2 guys since you got your franchise quarterback, which was 8 years now.
But yeah, so you look at that. all of that, and then you add this, which, okay, I've heard a lot of crazy things that come out after players out of the league or out of the team or on a practice squad somewhere else or in Canada or playing in the ELF or whatever it is, or EFL. They're out of the league when it comes out. This kid is what, year 2, year 3? Like technically
Year,
still year 2 of
year
his
2 and
deal.
just scored a touchdown 48 hours before this in an NFL divisional round playoff game.
And he has shown nothing but the acceptance. I won't say love, but acceptance of Buffalo. He bought the big poofy yellow jacket. Let's not forget. And you're going to put the kid on blast. And it's not anybody putting him on blast. It's your now president of operations and owner that are putting him on blast. Like, I know nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, but you can uncircle the wagons now.
Maybe you should circle the other way. Maybe go counterclockwise.
It's okay. Let's count backwards from 10 because you messed up. Like, there's a moment where somebody says something, and I'm sure you've had it when we talk on the podcast. I know I've had it when we're on the podcast, where you say something and you want to walk it back, and you stop yourself from going any further. Where was that for Pakula? Because it's got missing. Brandon Bean, what are you doing? You are obviously not your family member from the Oakland Athletics greatness, Billy Bean, because he would have never said anything like that to the media. Not until they were off their team. Like, you took a kid who's already struggling with confidence and now who is going into a new head coaching situation. Now, whatever head coach is coming in has just heard the front office, the top of the top front office, say, we weren't really wanting to draft him. Okay, I'm a coach coming in. Do I really want to play him then? No, because now I know the front office doesn't want him. Like, you just set yourself up for so much failure down the line because you couldn't shut your mouth during a press conference at 10 in the morning.
For a question that wasn't even directed to you. He interrupted one going for Bean to interject that. Like, no, let me defend my guy by crapping on this kid who's, well, now you got to trade him at this point, I guess, or you got to hope that he just has a complete brick wall, bulletproof brain that could cancel this out.
Yeah, look, maybe it's trying to light a fire under him, but I think you screwed this one up. I mean, I know it's a cold winter in Buffalo, but the season's over, and now he has to go through the whole offseason process with every news line attached to his name, talking about how the front office doesn't want him. And then one of two things is going to happen, especially for young players. He's going to excel and succeed, or he's going to fail on your team because you did not give him the opportunity to win. We talked about Mendoza needing the opportunity to win. Now you're just taking away every bit of confidence in a young player's arsenal, and especially receivers. We all know they're divas. They need as much confidence as you can give them because they are fragile divas. It's happened all the time. Ocho Cinco's gone on record talking about it. Even tight ends talk about it, and they're probably the least fragile of the divas, but they're still divas. And this is an offensive lineman talking, but you got it. You can't do this to a young kid, and to a young kid who hasn't, like, he's not great by any means, but he played better this year than he did the year before. So it's progressing, even with a bad head coach and a bad OC. It was progressing.
You fire McDermott, who is 98-50 in his tenure with you as well. You better not come out. You better not miss when you replace him, because there's not a whole lot of guys you're gonna get. I get the playoff wall. I get that you can't just, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. I like McDermott. I think he'll find another job soon. Maybe Vegas, because that's a very steadying hand at the top of it too. Maybe that's something, because he brings in good coordinators. You got Brian Daboll hired, so on and so forth. That being said, too, it's a dangerous game of roulette. I get you had to make a change, but now you look. If I'm a head coach in Canada and I have other opportunities, I'm looking at this like that's uncomfortable, because the best owner is the one that you don't even know their name. That's why everyone doesn't like Jerry Jones, because we all know his name all too darn well.
We know every wrinkle on his face.
Exactly. And I think
including the ones he gets ironed out every morning.
So we recognize the new ones that pop up through the iron and everything too. They're still going to find someone, and there's still the opportunity to coach Josh Allen. They're still going to find somebody. Granted, Josh Allen with surgery. That's my hot take way too darn early, is the Bills are going to miss the playoffs next year, depending on what they bring in a head coach. I'm not going to hold to that yet. Like, this is January. Give me some time for our official predictions, but this is that's not a pretty sight. And I don't know who they bring in Buffalo, but you can't dilly-dally. You can't miss now. Like, you know how they say, like, if you come for the king, you better not miss. Like, you really can't miss now because that's a team that's a rough situation. That's a team on the brink that has just gone through hell, that now you're taking away the coach, and now you're trashing a young player who's already going through it. Deion Dawkins and crew had already kind of left him out in the public eye saying, like, hey, he needs to get his you-know-what together. Now you have the owner basically saying, yeah, we made a mistake. Like, what are we doing? Like, that's just we could spend all day on this, all night. I'm going to say whoever they bring in head coach, I hope they're ready for it. And I hope they're good. I really hope they're good because it's fun when the wagons are being circled.
And I'll be honest, that's the first time Terry Pegula has ever gotten out in the media that I can remember. That's
First
like
time I ever heard his name.
I honestly have only known his name because of like other things that go along with the Bills, like stadiums or events or anything like that. What he does to support the community. This is the first time I've really ever heard him come out and talk about a player on the roster to media in this situation. And also, I know we've had McDermott for a couple years, so he's kind of taken a large brunt of what Buffalo deals with in the media. But this felt weird for the Bills.
It's weird because like they also probably could have let him go a couple of years ago after they choked in the playoffs in a situation they should have won. I get him going now, but you needed the clean house, just especially when the GM has not fully held up his end of the deal when you look at the roster construction. And part of that report, there was a report that came out the day before this press conference that rumor, obviously allegedly report, I don't know from a source in there, that McDermott talked to the owner and the GM about why that he's not sure if this team can make the Super Bowl, like some roster holes they need earlier in the year. And apparently they didn't like being told that there was a holes in the roster. I guess they thought it was perfect. And I don't know what those holes were. Maybe it was receiver. And they're like, no, Keon's the guy. And I don't know what the holes were, but there's a lot more chaos going on in Buffalo than there should be. And bad times in Buffalo, especially as you mentioned that Josh Allen foot surgery. But if he comes back healthy, they'll be fine. The problem is that it's not a cakewalk division anymore because there is a team in Foxborough that continues to haunt every millennial and Gen Z's life because they never just quite go away. They're always right there. But what they did last year, they spent money and they hired a new coach in Mike Vrabel. And a few teams are taking a similar lead this year. They're hiring their own coaches. Atlanta, Tennessee, Miami, New York, all getting their head coaches. Kevin Stefanski going to Atlanta. Tennessee, surprisingly, dodging the Matt Nagy bullet that was coming right for him and going with Robert Saleh. Miami taking Jeff Hafley from the Packers, and the Giants taking the John Harbaugh, getting him to go there. And even though it's just on paper, he gets final say over Joe Shane. So they did get that part correct at least. Even though Joe Shane says it's just formality. We know Harbaugh wants, Harbaugh gets. But
honestly, if the Buffalo Bills thing didn't happen, I'm sure we'd be talking about the Joe Shane thing a little bit longer. But can we just talk about how big of a nervous wreck he was after that in that press conference where he's like, I have to he's admitting to the world, I have to take orders from Harbaugh, even if it's just on paper.
And he knows now you can't hide behind Dabo on this one. If it doesn't work next year, it's like, well, it's not Harbaugh's fault. We got 20 years of evidence against that. So it's all the pressure in the world. You can't be sending Saquon Barkley to the Eagles now. You got to, you can't say like, oh, Jackson Dart was my guy, even though we have that on record that it was Dabo's guy. But I digress on there. We'll go down the list quickly. We'll start with the Giants, actually. John Harbaugh. I love it. Makes sense. They're going to turn it around. That's the perfect guy to lead the ship. He's going to bring some good coordinators for the creatine Caucasians and get that defense back on track.
Yeah, I like this one as well. Honestly, this is one that when we did our predictions, Harbaugh had just been let go, so I didn't really think about him for anything. But when I talked about it, I thought Stefanski was the spot. This is where he was going to go for the same reasons why I like Harbaugh. A coach that can do well with young quarterbacks and develop offensive weapons and kind of just manages the team. Doesn't focus one single piece of his brain on anything. He just kind of manages the team. And I think Harbaugh has, as you said, 20 years of experience watching this. He can do it. So yeah, I like this.
You mentioned Stefanski. We'll go to Atlanta as they're bringing Kevin Stefanski to take over as head coach. I like it. I don't love it. Bijan Robinson will be the number one pick in fantasy again next year because what we know Stefanski is going to feed that man a lot of different ways. He's going to be fine. I think they're still he once again goes to a place where the quarterback issue is still a problem because Penix's health really worries me, mostly because it also stunts his development a little bit, in addition to the fact that his body hates him. Are you going to bring back the ghost of Kirk Cousins? I don't know. And they don't have the first round pick this year because they traded to the Rams for James Pierce, who, by all accounts, has been pretty good this year. So you know what, that worked out. But I like it. We'll see. I hope he gets some leeway to get things. Maybe they trade for Shador, which would be ironic considering everyone said they hated each other, which would be hilarious. But it'll be a fun move. And he gets to play Baker twice here, which according to Baker, now they have beef again. And between him, Joe Thomas, Stefanski, they're all beefing again. So you know what? It's fine. It'll be fun. I think they're still kind of in the same spot for another couple of years till they get quarterback fully situated.
Yeah, I don't love this one. I don't hate it. You said Bijan. I'm also going to throw out Tyler Algier. Here's my hot take for next year. Really, really early hot take. Tyler Algier will be a top 20 running back, or whoever the back. I'll say whoever the backup is, because I think Algier's out of contract. But whoever the backup running back is will also be a top 20 running back option for your fantasy football team. But yeah, I don't love it, but I get it. It's one of those weird ones. It's like, yeah, it fits potentially, but I don't think it will fit for the talent that's currently in Atlanta. And specifically, I'm talking a quarterback because you just don't know. And he needs an offensive line, and not while the offensive line for Atlanta is not bad by any means. They're a top 10 offensive line this year. They're not great. Honestly, I would have liked a defensive coach here in Atlanta more, but all
I will
right.
say he did bring back Brian Callen as the offensive line coach, who was the O-line coach when those Browns O-lines were actually good.
Yeah,
So that's a nice, at least.
It's made sense, but I gotta say one thing though for Atlanta fans, let's calm down when you start talking about all the things you're talking about with what Michael Penix has to do based on the Shador situation. Let's pump the brakes there, guys. A lot of that is Cleveland media being idiots and not being able to talk about their Browns without panicking at any sort of hint or sniff of a breath taken the wrong way. Let's pump the brakes. Let's no need to say the things you're saying yet, but let's wait until game 1 of the season. Then you can say whatever you want after that. After his dink and dunk offense doesn't end up working in Atlanta.
Look, I just need Michael Penix to be on the field before we start judging. I just need him to actually stay healthy. But if we're gonna do hot takes for the way too early hot takes, the two of my Kyle Pitts will be a top 10 fantasy tight end next year. There's gonna be a lot of play action Kyle Pitts around there somewhere. The plays will be called for him, just like we saw with David Njoku, Harold Fannin, the crew tight ends will eat. And then part 2, the 2 games against the Bucs, one of them Baker's gonna throw 4 touchdowns, the other one he's gonna turn the ball over 4 times. He's going to go, yeah, I lit them up. I kept dogs unleashed, dogs unchained. Then the next one he's going to implode. It's the Baker Mayfield story. And I think it's going to come to fruition, especially with that chip on the shoulder being back. But we're not going to get into that because that's a catastrophe all around. And that's, speaking of owners that get in the way, that one, there's a convenient one. But let's go to Tennessee now because they're a little more fun. And I'm surprised they did bring in Rob Saleh. I like it. I don't love it for Robert Saleh because I think he could be a very good head coach, but now he's in another meh situation where hopefully he gets the Cam Ward's able to develop and they can build something there offensively. Hopefully he gets a leash to do so. Hopefully, because this team has holes across holes across holes. It's going to take some time to reload it. And you have one good, really good player in Jeffrey Simmons. That's really just about it. Like Tony Pollard's fine. I obviously have fine players, but Jeffrey Simmons is your blue chipper. If he gets a few years to at least do it, I like it for him because he deserves a second chance. I would have preferred he get somewhere like Atlanta or something with a little bit more in the cupboard. But if he gets time, I like it for Tennessee. But I don't love it.
Yeah. He's got to make a move offensive coordinator wise for this to work. He obviously missed out on his boy Mike McDaniel, as we'll talk about later. But he does still have opportunity for Brian Dabble. He is still out there. Or Dable, however you want to say his last name. I'll screw it up forever. And that is a guy who we know can work from an OC perspective for young quarterbacks. Not a head coach, but an OC.
No hair in sight. I like it. I can support this movement.
But I don't know. You got to, whatever you do, if you're Robert Saleh, if you want to extend your time in Tennessee for a long time, you do need to get an OC that's going to work well with Cam. Because I think there's talent there, right? There's talent in different places there. I think the defense he can definitely work with. It's not completely egregious. They did trade some pieces away this season. So you got to probably fill a couple holes in the draft. But like you did with the Jets, you need 3 seasons. This is the same situation with the Jets again. You need 3 seasons to rebuild around Cam Ward and rebuild this defense successfully, or you need to spend in free agency. Take your pick. One of the two has to happen. But within 3 years, this team should be walking the AFC South out the door if they do it right.
At least be competitive in it. Like it's at least got to be competitive in it. Like you can't be the bottom feeder.
let's not get super excited if it's good year 1 and bad year 2. Let's give him year 3 still, guys. Let's try it. See what happens when you give him 3 years.
If he has a good year in any of the first 3 years, then yeah, he can get year 4 on top. Like, let's give him some time. But last but not least, let's go to South Beach with Miami bringing in Jeff Hafley, the defensive coordinator from the Packers. And I'm gonna be honest with it. This is not even a shot at Jeff Hafley, but I hate the move. And that's not even a fault of Jeff Hafley. He did a good job as defensive coordinator for the Packers. Good, not great. Once Micah went down, it wasn't quite as good, but take that a pound of salt because Micah makes every defense a lot better and a lot worse when he's not there. He was a sub 500 record as the head coach at Boston College, where he was at not even a full season ago. I'm not saying just because of that at Boston College you couldn't be a good NFL head coach. We're a season removed away from that. Like he does not have a lot of time in the NFL circles yet. And I like Jeff Hafley as the defensive coordinator. I think he needs another year or two before he should start going for head coach jobs. Before someone should have been interviewing for head coaching jobs, I should say. And for Miami, that's a tall task when you look at their cap situation, their quarterback situation, the Tyreek situation, the contracts on the books too. You're Jalen Watt. You're spending so much money in your receiver room. One of them's not going to be back next year, and his history tells us anything. He's not going to be quite the same because lower leg injuries for 30-plus-year-old receivers, especially ones who use speed so much, doesn't always bode well. Your offensive line's okay, but it has some work to do. Your defense, you have some guys, it's all right. Like, it's okay. Kenneth Grant's all right, but that's a tall task for a guy who doesn't have a lot of time spent in the NFL. So I hate this move for the Dolphins and for Hafley because I think that's just rough all around, honestly. This is a team that needed somebody with a little bit more experience just in the NFL circles.
Yeah, I feel like this was a cop-out pick. I think after hiring John Eric Sullivan as GM, this was kind of like him being like, oh, I'm going to bring over my guy. And it's like, maybe this wasn't a great idea for your first run in as in Miami because there's already going to be struggles roster wise, as you mentioned. Like there's a lot of holes that you're going to have to fill here. And is a guy like Hafley ready? I don't know because he doesn't know, and he hasn't been in the NFL long enough to finish his first cup of coffee. Like he never made it through his first contract or his first termination within that first contract period. He didn't make that in his time frame in the NFL as an OC. So we don't really know
calendar year.
Yeah, like we realistically don't know what he's going to be able to do. Does it seem like it could potentially being good coming in with unity from the Packers and having that 11 and a half months worth of experience together? Sure. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if you guys know a coworker if you've worked with them for 11 and a half months, but I realistically don't know a coworker that well if I've worked with them for 11 and a half months. So I don't know what they're like under pressure. And let's amplify that pressure by giving you a couple $1 million and putting you out in front of people, and you have to go coach 54 individuals that are grown men and a lot faster and a lot stronger than you. And then you have to handle the media afterwards.
There's a lot that's going to go into this, and maybe he proves us all wrong, but as of right now, I don't love it. I really don't so much, but we'll see. But speed of moves that I do like, though, we're going to cruise through this next one quickly. Mike McDaniel, a hot commodity for a lot of them. Well, he says no to Cleveland, but joins the Chargers as an offensive coordinator. I'm a fan. I think what he can innovate in the run game, what he could do with a lot of the motions mixed with Justin Herbert and the crew. The biggest thing is that they just need to stay healthy. If the Chargers cannot break, this could be a wonderful fit next year. I think that run game with him is going to be very dynamic. With Kimani Vidal, if they bring back Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton, it's going to open things up even more. If, once again, the offensive line stays healthy. And yes, that's important for them because that's where they invested all their resources. It's not like other teams that invest their resources elsewhere than the offensive line stinks. I look at the Texans, for example. They knew the offensive line was going to struggle. That's why they have so many damn receivers. And that defense is so good. The Chargers said our offensive line is going to be so good, we'll have other weaknesses. That's why when the offensive line gets hurt, they look like butt cheeks. So no, this isn't Justin Herbert favoritism talk about the offensive line. This is when your most allocated resource completely disintegrates by week 3. But I digress. I like this move, and I think it keeps the Chargers interesting next year. I think it keeps everyone on their feet. I think it'll be good for everyone.
Yeah, we talked about one Harbaugh already getting a head coach position. Now another Harbaugh gets like incredible OC. Mike McDaniel is one of the best offensive minds we currently have in the game. I'd put him up there just behind your top 3. Realistically, where you talk Kellen Moore, you talk Andy Reid, pick a third one, and you're probably right.
Shanahan,
yeah, Sean McVay, I'd probably say, I guess Shanahan and whatever Packers head coach, I'll go up there. But yeah, top 7 offensive mind comes from the same tree. Comes from the same tree as 95% of those guys. Literally was on the same staff as most of them. So I think you look at this as an opportunity for Justin Herbert to, and again, I think I said this going into the season, he has to prove himself this year. This is the put up or shut up year. Well, then his offensive line died and he played with a broken hand for the second half of the season. So, okay, all right. I guess I give you an auxiliary year. This is your injury red shirt. Let's go prove it next year, because now you truthfully have the all time one of the best minds that started as a receiver coach that taught receivers to juke people like you're playing basketball off the line. And it's worked every single time. So he starts there. His design capabilities for an offense are incredible. Honestly, if he just had a quarterback who could sling the ball, and we all know Justin Herbert can sling the rock. I think just like these two are going to argue, Harbaugh and McDaniel, over how many times they run the ball versus throw the ball. Because I feel like McDaniel's like 50-50 and Harbaugh's like 70-30 run. And they're going to have to compromise somewhere.
Well, it's definitely going to be interesting for sure. Which we're not. One thing that they won't be doing is playing in the championship games. Is we're going to do our quick championship game previews. We'll start with the AFC. We got the Broncos taking on the Patriots. Patriots minus 5.5 point favorites, in no small part due to the Bo Nix experience coined by the High Low Sports Podcast in 2019. It was very high, then it was very low, then it was very high. Then with the game over, it got really low as he is out with a broken bone in his ankle. Would be Jarrett Stidham, Kelcey's guy, starting for the Broncos. Do the Broncos get it done with your boy Jarrett Stidham at the helm? Wow, these are both your guys at quarterback. Like, you're a Broncos fan right now.
I think I might be a Broncos fan right now. Not.
According to Kelcey, has finally ended. In Denver.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. But no, it is funny because if anybody knows the story of what happened at Auburn, Jarrett Stidham led Auburn to the Sugar Bowl. That's when they got beat by UCF National Championship, blah, blah, blah. Next year, Bo Nix walks in, replaces Jarrett Stidham. Now it's the irony here is it's flipped on its head. Also, what is Sean Payton doing running a stupid quarterback sweep with 20 seconds to go or whatever, 3 plays away from when they're going to kick a field goal? That was dumb. That's what got Bo Nix hurt.
We're going to have a full nerd moment here if you guys are ready for this one. I know this one because I said this with the group I was watching it in. I'll take 10 seconds. I know it's your time to talk. The reason he ran that is we're flashing back to 2011 when he's with the Saints going against the 49ers. When Alex Smith ran that exact same sweep off the left side on a third down against Jim Harbaugh, and he scored a touchdown late in the game to take the lead. He had that PTSD flashback, like, that son of a biscuit, because then Jimmy Graham scored, and then Vernon Davis had the catch 2.0. But he remembered that, and he's like, Bo Nix can do what Alex Smith does. Ran it, unfortunately, the Bills were not having any of that. But fun nerd moment for you, 2011 flashback.
The difference is it was a very balanced defense from the Bills versus a very offset defense from the Saints back in the day.
Look, I didn't say it was a good call. I'm saying that
it was a terrible call.
I could see his PTSD in his eyes. As soon as he ran that, I was like, I've seen this before against him.
Honestly, though, these are two teams that I really could care less about. But for that sake, I'm going to lean the Auburn direction here, and I'm going to go the Broncos just because I love the idea of Jarrett Stidham coming in with 7 days of practice as a starter and just blowing up the MVP candidate on the other side, Mike Vrabel, and the second saviors of the Patriots, whatever they want to call themselves. So, yeah, give me the Broncos.
I hate this because Bo Nix played really well, and I think Denver wins if he's playing. I think they do win if they're playing because New England has had the easiest path to this point I've ever seen in my life. The fact that their quarterback has fumbled the ball 8 times in 2 games and it hasn't meant a damn thing, and they haven't even trailed outside of 3-0 to the Chargers early in the game is just insanity. That being said, I think the easy path continues. The way that they will is if another one of your boys, and I'm not talking about the Auburn guys, I'm talking about Nick Bonito, takes over this game and abuses Will Campbell pillar to post. He needs like 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, maybe a pick 6 like he did against the Colts the previous year, something like that. I think Nick Bonito has to terrorize this game, which he can do. Very Micah Parsons-esque for that one guy that commented on the short 3 years ago that we never forgot. I feel like Nick Bonito has, and of course the rest of the defense, I just had to pick him as the big game record. I think they can't ask Jarrett Stidham to play as well as Drake May. They got to make Drake May play worse than Jarrett Stidham, which that defense can do. Patriots defense is no slouch, but the Broncos' path to victory is a 9-5 victory, basically. Like, they need a weird safety and a touchdown. We'll give it up a safety and a field goal. Like, they need some weird stuff to happen, I think, to win. But in Mile High, that could happen. So I'm still going to take the Patriots, though, because, well, we never get the fun things that happen like that. We never do. It's going to be that score until the fourth quarter, then stupid stuff will happen. But I'll take the Patriots.
I just don't want it to end on a Mile High milk check. That's all I ask for. I don't need a Mile High milk check for the game-winning touchdown to Keyshawn Boutte. I don't want to see that.
I swear, Riley Moss, if you get destroyed for the game-winning touchdown,
you wear blue sleeves today, blue. Like Riley Moss, wear your blue sleeves. Don't wear your white sleeves today.
Wear a different number, do something like disguise it a little bit better. But this would be for what I'm going to call the third place game, because I believe the real Super Bowl is taking place in the NFC, as we will have. It's just fitting it goes to the NFC West. I mean, three of the 5 best records in football, all in the NFC West at this point. Seahawks, Rams, the trilogy after the Seahawks just played the Niners 2 times in a row, basically. Clobbered them both times, gave up a total of 6 points or something like that. It was insanity. But 2.5-point favorite Seahawks, taking on the Rams. Kelcey, I think I know where you're going with this one. I don't let you say
it. Sam Darnold, guys, is not seeing ghosts anymore. So, yeah, I am going to go with the Seahawks. And then, again, I don't mean to pick the Auburn bias here, but there are more Auburn players on the Seahawks than there are on the Rams by 1. So there are 2 on the Rams that I can think of and 3 on the Seahawks that I can think of. But yeah, I have a hard time looking at the Seahawks team and not thinking this is a really, really well-balanced team. You have JSN, who is playing at all-time level as a receiver. You have Sam Darnold, who, let's not forget, the guy's won 28 games in 2 seasons in the regular season. Okay, for 2 different teams.
Second guy to do 14 wins in back-to-back years. First guy to do it 2 different teams.
He's been written off both seasons. Let's stop trying to do that, because you put him in the correct situation for his talents to succeed. What are his talents? Play action passes, using the run game to his advantage, and having an exceptionally good receiver. Well, he has 2 great running backs right now, and K9 and Charbonnet, who are...
Well, one of them's done. Charbonnet's out.
Okay, well, up until this point, you had 2 really good running backs. Yeah, you won't have Charbonnet.
He's got an elite back now.
Yeah, I say you won't have Charbonnet get you snipe those first touchdown calls. Although you might have your kick return team yet again, and Rashid Shaheed return another kickoff. It's crazy what the Seahawks have done. Nothing against the Rams; they're an incredibly strong team, but I think defensively they have shown weakness in the last couple of games, and I think that's where they're going to get taken advantage of. Where the Seahawks defense has gotten stronger, and they're playing in Seattle, which is going to be a mess this weekend, and I cannot wait.
You know what's weird when these 2 teams play is the combined victory has been 3 points. The Rams won by 2 the first time, and the Seahawks won by 1 the second time. And it's so dumb, because the first game, Stafford was okay. Like, he didn't really do a whole lot. Couple short touchdowns, 58% completion. It's because Sam Darnold threw 4 picks, and early on, like, you know what? We'll be conservative with this one. No need to take any risks. It's fine. Sam Darnold will give us the game, which they kind of did, even though they almost won the game late. Then the second one, Stafford has a virtuoso 460 yards and 3 touchdowns, and they lose by 1. The only team in NFL history to score a touchdown in overtime and lose so far. Yeah. That's why this one's just so weird to pick for me. I think West Coast Sam is a real thing. I think West time zone, outside of Eastern time zone, Sam Darnold is a real thing. Just getting him outside of the Eastern time zone, he's been outstanding. So I think it's going to be very incredibly close. I do think the Rams have a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of the experience, a little bit of the edge. I still give Stafford the edge. I think McVay, I give a little bit of the edge to, for no other reason than experience. He's been through this tons of times over. Puka Nacua, even though JSN has been virtuoso, Puka's been weirdly right there behind him. It's as close as it gets. And I think the Rams defense just still gives Darnold a little bit of trouble. Even in the game they won, they made it difficult for Darnold. It was Rashid Shaheed punt return that completely changed the game. So I'm going to take the Rams in a stupidly close game. I think it's going to be very tick for tack. Whoever has the ball last, I think, has a really good chance to win. If you're telling me it's the Rams have the ball down 4 with 3.5 minutes left, gosh, that's cinema. I hope we get to that point. 24-28, Stafford has the ball with 3.5 minutes left. That's what we dream of, to see that happen. So I'll take the Rams by a very slight margin, but I don't love it. I will say that. I don't love it. I'm not taking -2.5, that's for sure, because I think this will end up being a 1-point game if I do that. So we'll take the Rams at +2.5 in this one.
You want to know the craziest stat is up until their December 18th matchup. Sam Darnold was 0-3 against the Rams all time. 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions.
4 of them in one game.
Yeah. So that's a potential storyline to have a conversation of, is can he finally shake that nuisance?
Including last year in the playoff game when they went into Los Angeles, even though they had a 14-win season because they were the 5 seed. Unfortunately, I think they're like 7 sacks on them. They kind of tore them apart. So They just give him trouble. So let us know down below who you all have advancing to the Super Bowl in this championship weekend. And that's going to take us into Kelcey's favorite part of every show. That is, of course, good old crunch time. And I brought a doozy for us at crunch time. We're talking about some hypothetical scenarios, some bold predictions, if you will. Well, here's one that was in an article where they were talking about maybe bold predictions coming up in the offseason from some GMs. Lamar Jackson heading to the Las Vegas Raiders. Potential pairing through the rumor mill. Who track such things. That will this happen? I'm going to say I don't think so. I mean, more or less the previous rumor was Lamar and Harbaugh were beefing. They chose Lamar. You're probably going to have to extend him. But let's just hypothetically say this is even on the board. Ravens, if you're going to do this, you better bring in Curt Cignetti as your head coach to pair with Fernando Mendoza because you're getting the number 1 overall pick, and Max Crosby in return or something. But I just can't see this happening. If you're Lamar, you don't want this. No matter how much guaranteed money they give you, no matter if they give you the contract you want, you're going to be running for your life. You're going to have to throw to Brock Bowers literally almost every play. It's going to be what you were doing with Mark Andrews, but way worse. And Ashton Jeanty is nice, but nope, don't love it. Don't think it should happen. Not at all. Nope, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. If you're going to send Lamar, don't send him to the Ravens. If you're the Raiders, you have way too many holes to be thinking Lamar will patch all of them. So don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. This isn't the Rams getting Stafford. Don't do it.
Yeah. So I've seen this for a couple days now, and I mentioned it in one of our group chats that we have with a bunch of our podcast buddies, and only one person really reacted to it. And I think it's very telling that this is just kind of like one of those what type of moves from Baltimore. If we don't question Baltimore very often when it comes to personnel moves, but if this was a real trade, it feels very extreme. It feels like they need to be trading with a third team in here, and they're bringing in a veteran quarterback to pair with their new head coach. That's what this feels like it would be a trade for. But that's not the case. Like there's no way that's the case, because unless you're bringing in Josh Allen, would you be wanting to trade Lamar for anything? I don't think so.
Unless you're bringing in Curt Cignetti and you really love Mendoza and can get that one pick.
Yeah, maybe there's a reason Alberto Mendoza transferred already from Indiana shortly after the national championship game. Maybe Cignetti is leaving. I don't know, but no, I question this rumor for a lot of reasons. But if it's true, Lamar in Vegas would be very interesting. Him in a dome again, not around the Ravens, not in that cold AFC North, getting to play the AFC West in a division with Patty, in a division with Justin Herbert, in a division with Bo Nix. Good luck. You just went from the worst conference in the AFC to the very best conference in the AFC, and it's not close at all.
Yeah, that's a tough divisional trade. Like,
you
sure,
find
you get
12 divisions in the entire country.
Yeah, you went from hey, I only have to deal with Joe Burrow twice. You're to Patrick. Oh, Denver's defense. Oh, the Chargers. Oh, great. Yeah, I don't like the
Ditto. Oh no.
By the way, I have nothing on my roster to help me right now because they were just the worst team in the league. Like, there's clearly holes here. That there's a reason Ashton Jeanty had more yards after contact than actual yards total because he was getting assaulted religiously in the backfield.
And still one of the crazier NFL stats.
Just absolutely blasphemous. But let us know down below what crazy bold predictions you all have for next NFL season as we are about a month away from the offseason. We appreciate y'all so much for joining us, and we'll see you all again next time.